Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. It's our day here with Jay-Z. And Jay-Z and I are going to be talking about advanced teleology for several weeks here. We got several PowerPoint slides. Show us your book.
Oh yeah, this one. You sent it to me in the mail.
Yeah, I have the same one. Look, wait, hold on. Teleology, a history. Pretty cool. We have matching books. So, um, tell me what you noticed so far in your reading about what is teleology or what is what.
Oh, well, what you had explained to me prior to my starting the book about teleology made sense. It's like the an acorn is has like an inherent purpose of becoming an oak tree, kind of thing. And so conceptually, it's um that's what I knew about teleology.
Mhm.
And now, since I've read the introduction to this book, I know that there's going to be a bunch of things that are comparing different people's views on teleology, like um, Plato and Aristotle, and even if Plato didn't use the word teleology, it's conceptually the same thing. And then there's lots of interesting things about like, is your purpose intrinsically generated or extrinsically generated? And yeah, it should be a fun philosophical topic to discuss.
Okay, so just to clarify more for the crowd, like teleology is a study of things becoming themselves and also for a life purpose or for a reason. So they would say that the oak or the acorn exists to grow an oak tree in some ways. We could also say that the acorn has a function like for squirrels to eat or something like that. Like, so teleology would look at the function of a thing, like what is this for, right? So like, astrologers or teleologists, it's like the life end goal of a person's life. Astrologers look at a chart and we say like, what was this person built for? And that's why astrologers or teleologists were looking at what is the end goal of this chart in life. Um, like for you, we might say like, oh, this is growing a hacker, or it's like this is growing a guitar player. With Macho Man Randy Savage, we might say like, oh, this is the chart of a professional athlete, or what. And that's what's growing here, and that's what the life and purpose of this chart is. So as a lot of people think of charts as woo woo, it's just like look at my chart and see what is what. And it's like, that's fine. But actually, if you anchor astrology and teleology, it's not very woo woo. It's a philosophy. It's saying what philosophically is growing here and why, you know. Um,
So, Andy, are we going to get into like, all right, so maybe this is how you could achieve your highest potential, but you were born into circumstances that would not allow you to become that? Or are you those other things that determine like what you can or can't do? Say you're growing up in a environment that systemically oppresses you, like, yeah,
okay.
are you still born into that purpose?
Well, okay, so we look at four influences on a growing creature from a teleological perspective. And my friend Kenneth Miller told me about these, and I think they exist in the Tetrabiblos. But it's like we have genetics, culture, climate, and the chart. So let's say your chart is that of a computer hacker, but you grow up in a culture where there's no computers, and there's a climate where people are against computers. So you grow up in an Amish, I don't know, environment or something. We would say that someone with the temperament of a hacker grows up and they start having to grow in an Amish environment. It would be like if you had a rose bush growing among a bunch of rose bushes, and then you have one growing amongst a bunch of kale. You know what I mean? The rose bush is still a rose bush, but it
Mhm.
might not. It might be just. It looks very different because it's surrounded by kale.
Mhm.
Um. So I would say the chart layer still functions. If you're a professional wrestler, you're still gonna grow up in the Amish world as a professional wrestler chart, but maybe you become a farmhand who's also an entertainer among the Amish, you know, so you become a similar thing, but it's the culture is absolutely going to affect what grows.
Yeah, okay, I see. So like you know, Randy Savage would be the the pig wrestler and the hacker would be the one who figured out a really cool way to modify their horse buggy mechanism or something like that.
Exactly, exactly. I had a Christian tell me about this once where he said that you're supposed to like pray to God to say, what is my function in this life at this point in time? Because like you could take the same chart and put it in 100 years later and it's going to do a different thing because technology is going to have advanced. It's like, you know, you're if a hacker functioning now is going to be different than a hacker functioning 100 years from now. I mean, you and I know that they would have different outer planets, so you know they would the hacker actually wouldn't be the same. But if let's say all first
Right, right. I get it. To pedantically fact check what you said, you couldn't take the same chart and have it 100 years later.
Right, exactly. But you see what I'm saying is like if you're a translator and you're living in the time of Jesus, like you might be translating Jesus's teachings or something. But if you're a translator living in 2024, you might be translating fan fiction from, you know, I don't really know, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So,
see. I hear you. All right, right on.
yeah.
So let's see. Did that explain to the people what teleology is, do you
Well, let's
think?
talk about telos. Like, what is a telos? Do you know?
I don't know. It's a Greek word.
Yeah, it is a Greek word. Let's actually get our Greek dictionary. My tiny, tiny Greek dictionary, because it's the root of teleology is telos. And so let's see, and you know, it kept tripping me up in all these ancient translations of like telos this, telos that. And I was talking to Demetra George at Norwalk, and I was telling her, I was like, Demetra, don't you think teleology is the next thing that the Hellenists should be talking about? Because it was the philosophy upon which Hellenistic astrology was built. And she said, I absolutely agree. In the last line of my history of astrology book, I talk about Jesus, and Jesus said, I have now fulfilled my telos and I can now die. So Jesus even knew what a telos was. And the teleology is all over the Bible. So let's look at what a telos is. A telos is the consummation, the coming to pass of a thing. It's fulfillment. So Jesus is saying, I have fulfilled my fulfillment and I can now die, right?
Wait, did Jesus speak ancient Greek,
Well,
or was that a translation?
no, you're right. That must have been a translation. I mean,
Or did he?
I'm not a historian, so
I
but
don't, I'm not either. I think I read some books though that he was part of the community in Egypt that was Greek people.
yeah, there was
Anyway,
a lot of Greeks who studied in the library of Alexandria, Egypt, and I'm not really, I wish I was more of a historian in that way. Maybe someday with all my free time, I'll go to school for history. Um, just kidding, I don't have the chart of a historian. I have the chart of a linguist. But okay, so I'm looking at linguistically, like the coming to
okay.
pass of a thing. So he said, you know, I have come, my life has come to pass, and now I can die. You know,
Mm.
the outcome. So he's like, my life outcome has happened. Um, let's see what else. Something done, the summing up, the service or duty has been committed. So he's like, obligation to render a service or payment. So he said, like, I have fulfilled my obligations here,
Mhm.
essentially, and I can pass away. Your service
It's
is
like reason for being.
yes, yes, exactly. Life purpose. Huge with the
Yeah.
Talos. A Talos is a
Is it
thing.
only humans who have talos, or is it can things have talos?
Oh no, well the acorn has a tailus, right? Or
Oh
like
yeah, that's right.
but yeah, like a dog could have a tailus. Like for example, what about a rescue dog or a police dog? We
Hmm.
could say that its life purpose is to save people from cocaine, or you know, if it has a purpose or a function, then it has a talos.
Okay, and then so does the function or the purpose have to do with itself or with itself in conjunction with other humans or humans? Like, does that need to happen? I don't know. I'm reaching back to what you said at the beginning, right? About the acorn. So the acorn's destiny might be to become an oak tree. The acorn's destiny might also to be to feed a squirrel.
Right.
How do you
Right.
know which it is? Or I guess the acorn's destiny could be it could feed one squirrel, but if it became an oak tree, then it would feed millions of squirrels, and its destiny is to feed squirrels.
Well, you remember that you were asking the question, is Talos intrinsic or extrinsic? And I think we're going to hit that in a later episode, in a later slide of like, is
Mhm.
our purpose coming from within us or is it coming from outside? And I think it's probably both, right? Like we say, my life purpose is to be an astrologer or something like that. And then the world says, like, well, your purpose is to be my astrologer and to translate these Greek books. And, like people might come and ask me to translate Greek because they know I'm an astrologer and an interpreter, right? Like, so it's like, I think our telos is manifested as a co-creation between internal manifestation and extrinsic forces asking us to do stuff. I mean, what
Mhm.
do you think?
Yeah, I think it's got to be both because also like the rescue dogs intrinsically its existence is to like have fun and be a dog, and then the someone who rescued it might be like, oh, your value was you saved me, like I don't know,
Well,
but I do think things have multiple reasons and multiple layers, and nothing like we don't know what anything is for, right?
that's true. Well, I think it could be a conglomeration of all those things. Like, okay, if we have a culture of training rescue dogs, right? Or like cocaine dogs, right? Let's say we have a bunch of puppies bred into a cocaine police dog facility. Well, that culture is going to train them all for that talos. And though we're going to get some who have the charts meant for that talos, right? And some of these dogs are going to be the most exceptional, police dogs that ever lived. And we're like, oh,
Mhm,
you are made for this.
mhm.
Even though the culture is making, people for the purpose of, so you get what I'm saying is like, not every hacker is created equal, and not every acorn tree is created equal. You can be like, if the tree is like feeding thousands of squirrels, like you are made for feeding squirrels. Like, and another oak tree is like just kind of dilapidated, and it's providing shade over, Sally and Jim's house, and they're like, this tree exists to provide shade for us, and like, so I think it can be a celebration of what something is good for. Or it's that it answers that question is like, I don't know what anything is for. Like in a teleological approach, you assign duty or things that something is for.
Hmm. Interesting. All right.
Okay. Um, well, can I bring up gender for a second? Because in the gender
Sure.
and astrology video, we were talking about manifestation and how so much of teleology is visioning. Like they would say, how does a person know what they're here for? Well, they get a vision. So, if you're, a little kid and you see yourself as a computer hacker, you're like, oh, I just want to, figure out this computer thing. And like you keep getting visions of going on the computer. Well, then we know you're growing a computer genius, right? Because that's what your visions keep showing you. Well, the world gets to have their way with you as well, but like with gender, it's really interesting because like from a really liberal perspective, whatever we vision ourselves as is who we are in gender, right? Like if you are born XX chromosomally, which would be the first nugget here of seed, like what is your seed? But your visions in your chart keep showing you, but I'm male in formation spiritually or whatever. Um, well, the world and the culture and climate you're in still has a say about it. That we're like, well, I don't think so, or you don't seem like a man to me, or like they do all this like culture on your growth. But like really intrinsically, you're manifesting the gender that your chart is trying to manifest. But see how it is kind of this dance of like people telling you who you are, and then you being like, no, I'm with this, and then them telling you, and like it is. I mean, what do you think of that?
I hear what you're saying. I yeah, I think that maybe it comes into play because like you say, it's the culture around you that sometimes will um, limit your options or push you in one direction or another. And if it is too far off from what you envision your own highest potential to be, then yeah, maybe you kick back and say, no, and insist on something else.
Yeah. Well, I think if you were growing in a culture that celebrated two-spiritedness, for example, you might go more of a two-spirit formation than a surgical formation in some culture. Some cultures handle that one way or another. Like, so I think Talos is like this constant co-creation between who we see ourselves to be and how the world accepts and informs that. But that's not a bad thing necessarily. That just is growth. That's growth theory.
Mm.
I think there are
Yeah,
right answers.
and I think, well, I think then at sometimes the world will cut off options, for you as well because of your physical manifestation. So, example, like, what if Randy Savage, broke his kneecap, and could no longer be a professional wrestler, and that couldn't be his manifestation anymore? Then what does he do? He changes.
Yeah,
But
totally. Then he has the crisis of Talos, like what am I here for now? Or like what is my life purpose now? If I can't be a wrestler, what am I?
mhm.
Interesting. Well, so I like that you said highest point of like development because it also says realization, highest point or ideal. We could say that Randy Savage's Talos is to be Randy Savage, the wrestler, because that's his highest point or highest ideal version of that chart. And with a broken knee, we could say that's still the Randy Savage plant, but it's broken. Maybe he keeps being Randy Savage, but now he's a commentator, or maybe I guess only we have to let his vision show us what is he going to do now. Like, is the plant going to stay like this and grow this way, or is it going to prop itself back up and grow this way, or like, what's it going to do?
Mhm.
It's interesting, don't you think?
Very interesting. So tell me about why you keep comparing things to plants.
Because in Ensoulment, which we're going to start reading today, they did that constantly. In order to understand souls, they would constantly be like, well, the soul of a plant looks like this. The soul of the human looks like this. Like a human's a roving soul. Like it's a plant that roves around. Whereas, but they did this to understand development theory. Like, what does a plant need to develop? Food, air, water, and soil, right? And then they would compare the human to that. Like human needs food, it needs air, it needs soil, which I guess is food or nutrients come
Sure.
up through the soil, right? Like nutrients. Um, but the
Mm.
reason they would do this is when you get a philosophical question like you're talking about something controversial or something you can't figure out, like with the Randy Savage with the broken knee, and then we're like, what do we do? Is that his tail? But when I started comparing it to the plant, then we kept going. We were like, oh, I see, that would be like a plant that's a watermelon plant, but it got broken, so it can't grow a watermelon over there because it can't produce its life purpose. Like, now what does it do? It's actually the way they would handle like questions that were too much for the astrologer, or like, I don't understand what we do with that. And so I just learned that from, reading these Ensoulment mainly, which was like, oh, this is how they wrangled all these questions, was keep going back to, well, what if the person was a plant? You know?
I see, because it has some of the same characteristics. Like, it's a auto healing system that can grow. Like, you can't really compare people to machines because machines can't, like, if a part breaks, they can't fix it inherently by themselves, right? But your body is, maybe it's like organically changing.
Inter-
And on this planet, that's a good comparison. Animals and plants.
Totally, totally. Yeah, because animation, like in Ensoulment, we're going to study animation. What animates a plant? what animates a human. You know, they look at the differences in that. They'll say, well, both humans and plants spawn from a parent plant. You know, or like if we look at genetics, hopefully we're going to do, well, not hopefully, we are going to do a show on intersections of race and astrology, right? And in that we're going to look at genetics, which, race is genetic. I mean, not the cultural construct of race, but the actual genetic component of race, right? And so they would say, like, a watermelon plant comes from a watermelon parent plant, right?
Mhm.
And a squash plant comes from a squash parent plant.
It's like a DNA thing.
Exactly. So they would say that with people too. Like, if your mom is Germanic, then you are a Germanic plant.
Hmm.
And so I think they're studying these, like, the non-animate part of the human person is like a plant. It's you don't judge it. You don't say like a watermelon is better than a squash. You just say they're both beautiful plants, and it depends on what you're eating for dinner, or like what you want for dinner. So I think it
Or dessert.
yeah, totally dessert. So see, it kind of takes out some of the controversial nature of looking at things from a development theory and makes it more farmer like, more peaceful.
Ah, yeah, yeah. All right, okay. And then, I had another question for you because maybe you talked about ensoulment. Maybe people don't know what ensoulment means when you refer to it. It's a book.
Yeah, it's this book, Ensoulment, is written by Porphyry of Tyre, who also wrote the introduction to the Tetrabiblos. So Porphyry was a Neoplatonic philosopher who studied astrology and the Tetrabiblos, but then also wrote on how the soul gets in the body. He was essential. Now, these ancient guys all knew teleology. It would be like knowing the word manifestation or something. They knew the word telos, they knew teleology. So it's cool. He studied charts, and he also then wrote this essay on how the soul gets in the body. Let's see what it says on here. It says Porphyry of Tyre was an influential ancient Greek philosopher. Building on the works of his predecessors, Porphyry delved into many topics. In his collection of works, Porphyry has contributed a few great texts to the field of astrology, including an introduction to the Tetrabiblos of Claudius Ptolemy and Ensoulment. In this elegant text that lies within, Porphyry delves into the influences of the heavens on the soul. He asks and answers questions such as, how do the outside weather seep into an embryo? Does the heavenly flow influence the life pursuit? What if a baby is born under peevish weathers? And many, many more. So,
Is does celestials influence, is that like a yes no question?
well, it's funny because, I was like an archaeologist doing this book. It took me 7 years to translate this, and we had no idea if there'd be any astrology in here. All we know is
Mm.
that this book is about how the soul gets in the body.
Wait, it wasn't translated to English before?
No, never.
You were the first one that did that?
Yeah.
You're awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this guy Roger Pierce, he was a religious scholar, and I found him because they were talking about the introduction of the Tetrabiblos. He was trying to commission someone to translate this book, and they were talking about me, and they were saying, "Well, this woman has done it, blah 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 blah." So I emailed Roger Pierce, and I was like, "Nice to meet you. I'm Andrea. Is there anything else you need translated?" And all of a sudden, I got
Uh-huh.
a zip file in my email, and it was Ensoulment, and he said this has never been
Oh.
translated. He's a religious scholar.
Oh, nice. Excellent. Well, maybe your telos was to translate ensoulment for the English speaking world and for new astrologers, and to teach people about astrological remediation.
Well, okay, so it's funny, like, I'm gonna push back on that a little bit. So, do I think my telos was to translate Ensoulment? I think my telos is to be like as big as Sylvia Brown was. But the reason I was guided to Ensoulment was because it taught me the teleology that makes the astrology so profoundly sound. Like, when I'm ready to go on freaking Oprah. I know Oprah doesn't exist anymore, but like, I would be able to go on Oprah and talk intelligently about astrology with anybody because I'm not woo woo, I'm not a psychic, I'm a philosopher. And I learned that
Mhm.
from reading Ensoulment. I'm like, oh, I'm a teleologist, you know? And so I think it was a piece of my telos. And in fact, on a plant, there's, it grows one watermelon and then another watermelon and then another watermelon. Like each one of my books is like a watermelon, it's a fruit of the vine. But like my whole plant is, I don't really know what it's for. I mean, I guess it'll be determined, right? When I'm 85 and we saw what my life path was, it's probably to teach 100,000 people how to read their own chart. I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah,
What's
nice.
what's your telos?
Oh, I don't know. I don't want to be pressured to have the pressure of like having to do anything, be famous, be known for any special thing or anything. I want to enjoy my life and have a awesome time doing like really just simple things. I'm kind of like I'm not controversial. I'm just out to like have a simple life, a good time and great friends and think about things and talk about things and play music and enjoy art. I just want to have a good time.
Hmm. See, the astrologer in me is unsatisfied with that answer. I'm like, well, your sun in the Pisces in the 12th house is the telos of a yogi, and also, and like it's like you totally forgot that you do yoga like every single day, and basically are teaching the world how to be spiritually sound and calm inside, and like I get that your chart's not famous, like your sun in the 12th is like not trying to be famous, like I'm Pisces too, but my moon's in the 10th, right? Like I'm here to go public, you're here to go private. But I think consciousness work and 12th house work, what you're doing, is equally as important as public people. Like it would only be like okay, here, let's compare it to plants. Do you think that a plant that is on the front lawn of the White House is a better, more important watermelon plant that the than the watermelon plant that feeds the starving child in your neighborhood?
No. I- or maybe, I don't know. I think they're equal.
See what I'm
No,
saying?
I know. I guess, wait, so I'm gonna kind of amend what I was saying about my own telos, and I think I just want to have a good, chill, awesome, relaxed life, enjoying being creatively expressed. Just, and I think I can serve the function as a model to other people of like how to do that, or that is a great expression of like who I was supposed to be.
Beautiful. Yeah, see how I wasn't okay with like you don't have a life purpose? Like the teleologist to me is like, "Oh no, you do." Like everyone has a life purpose. Like you don't let anyone just chill and not have a purpose, because that would be like, "Oh, this acorn's just chilling and having no good. It's for no good." It's like, no, you can always look at something and be like, "What is this for?" So
Mhm.
that's a lesson for today for everyone, anyone listening is like, what are you for anyway?
All right.
Thank you. I can't wait to get into more and more episodes about this. It might take us 10 weeks to get through. I don't know how long it'll take us to get through teleology, but would you commit to helping the crew understand teleology this year?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
because I want to understand it. I think it's a great thing to learn and study, and it's really good to think about and converse about.
Okay, let me show you quickly, just as a teaser. Okay, so I have
Right.
this is my slide deck on advanced teleology, and this is from reading chapters. I'm up to page 75, and these are all my notes. Okay. But I have, the first slide is on teleology, Hellenistic astrology, missing philosophy. But look at all the slides I have for us to discuss. We're just gonna have so much to talk about as far as, what does this even mean? So
Oh yeah. Oh, this is good. I can't wait.
am I entertaining you?
Oh yes, absolutely. Am I entertaining you?
Well, I think your Talos is to be my best friend. No, I'm just kidding. Can you imagine if I just owned your Talos like you're all mine?
That's awesome. Hey, is this win-win? Because it's got to be win-win or no way.
Well, it's a win for me because I've been wanting someone to help me teach the crew, and by the crew I mean every living astrologer, teleology. And it's not something I can do alone. I mean, no one wants to hear me lecture, on hours and hours of teleology. I mean, maybe they do, but
Mhm. All right, well, it's a win for me too because I love talking about things like this and thinking about things like this. And I'm glad that I'm so glad that you're inspiring me to read this book, and because I love reading books. And yeah,
nice. All right, well, I can't
win-win.
wait to see you next Monday for teleology 2.
Okay,
All right, I'll see you at
bye.
Soulmate in 25 minutes.
Okay.
Bye.